Hey guys, Rytherner here, and I've been anticipating Kung Fu Panda 4 ever since it got announced. And oh boy, do I have a lot of things to say about it. Now, before we get into the actual cons and pros and everything like that, I just want to say something real quick. I did some extensive, not really extensive, but mostly just some minor research to figure out what the hell happened here. And if you've seen any of the other reviews that people have done on this movie, you would probably know what I'm talking about, because this movie, for some strange reason, is so out of character for the main three movies that I have a lot of attachment to. If you don't know me, I am a big Kung Fu Panda fan. I think it's one of the best, well, not really trilogies anymore, but franchises that DreamWorks has ever done. I love the first movie. I absolutely adore the second movie. And the third one, I thought it was decent. There's a lot of stuff that I didn't really like, but I thought it was a decent conclusion of where they wanted to take the story. And then they throw this, which nobody asked for, but for some reason we all got excited. And I'm not going to pretend that I wasn't excited for this movie, because I was really excited. And the reason why I was so excited was because of the information that got released from the director himself, and some other news outlets and stuff like that. That really got most of us really pumped to see this movie, because we thought, well, technically I thought that it was going to be a really cool conclusion to Poe's character arc, so to speak. Even though that his arc is already completely done with the third movie, but I thought they were going to add something a little bit different with his character in this movie. And we'll get to all the stuff that I liked and didn't like in a second, but I just want to say this, that I did do some research about this movie, because after I was done watching the movie, usually when I'm finished watching a movie, I usually come home from the theater, do the voiceover, the editing, and then I upload it, and then case closed, and you guys watch it and you guys enjoy it or whatever like that. But for this, I wanted to figure out what the hell went wrong with this movie. Like, it just fell trip over face first onto the concrete, and I don't know what the hell happened here. But my conclusion is that this movie, in production, especially from the director, had a lot of misinformation and a lot of misleading stuff to say about the movie before it even came out, and that's why many people, including myself and some of my friends who actually went to see it, were very disappointed by. And I'm not saying that this movie is bad, not by a long shot. It's definitely not bad. It's definitely the weakest out of the three, and we'll get to that when we get to the con section. But it's definitely not terrible as what people are saying. It is definitely mid. I'll give it that. It's definitely mid. I much prefer 3 over this movie by a long shot. 100%. But we'll get to the misleading stuff later down the line. But for right now, let's focus on what I did like about the film. So what did I like about Kung Fu Panda 4? Well, the action. The action is spectacular in this movie. I think that this is probably the most heavy action Kung Fu Panda film to date. I do love the other fight scenes. Like, this movie doesn't have any, like, grand over, dramatic battle sequences that, like, kind of keep you, like, in your memory. There is a really decent boss battle, like a final battle at the very end of the movie. And if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. That's a really cool fight scene. But it's nowhere near as, like, Tai Lung breaking free from the prison, or, like, the port scene from Kung Fu Panda 2, or even the tower sequence, or anything like that, or even Oogway fighting Kai in the beginning of Kung Fu Panda 3. All of these films have really great action scenes, and I think that this has the most action out of the 3 so far. I think this is a really heavy action movie, and it really did keep me entertained through the whole thing. Even through the stuff that I didn't like, it still kept me waiting to see more, fight scenes and more choreography done. And the choreography, by the way, is also really great. They also took some elements, it's not really a carbon copy of Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, but they definitely took some elements and kind of stylized the fight scenes. There is one scene where Poe is kind of fighting in the mist, and you can see the outline of who he's fighting in the mist, and it looks really, really cool. And they also took, like, kind of a different art style from the third movie, where it's not really like Puss in Boots: The Last Wish kind of style to it, but it's definitely more stylized from the third movie. It definitely looks great. The also speaking of looking great, it has fantastic animation. The animation in this is fantastic, especially like I said with the fight scenes. They did a lot of different camera angles and kind of weird stuff with the fight scenes, and it definitely appeals really well. It really keeps you like on your feet, so to speak. That it has some really cool camera angles that they utilize to make the action scenes a lot more entertaining. If it was just kind of like a blank fight scene, so I really got to give them appreciation for that. Anyway, back to the animation again. The one of my friends actually pointed this out to me when we were watching the movie. The backgrounds look 2D, and with the 3D stuff in front. And I don't know if that's the case or that's actually what they wanted to go for, but looking back on it, it definitely does look a little bit different from the actual kind of main characters and the main like 3D sets. And if that's the case, goddamn, it looks beautiful nonetheless, even if it is 2D or 3D. The scenery in this is amazing. I love the Chinese aesthetic. That's why I love Kung Fu Panda as a franchise so much, because I just love the Chinese aesthetic. And I also love that you get to see more of this world as well. It also kind of adds to the scenic route because they do a lot of different stuff with the different cities and villages that they go through. You get to see a lot more of this world, which I really do appreciate, and I really do like that. And since this is a Jack Black film, of course, you're going to have some fantastic humor. My opinion has kind of changed on the humor. When I was discussing the movie with my friends, because that's what we do after we watch a movie, we just discuss what we liked and didn't like. I did say that this was probably the funniest movie, but after rewatching the three main movies, I would say that this one definitely has some humor that goes a little bit further than what the other three had. The other three had some fantastic humor in it, don't get me wrong, but this movie has some humor that actually genuinely made me laugh like really hard. Maybe because my humor is just kind of similar to Jack Black, and he has some great humor and jokes and everything like that. So I'm kind of biased towards that. But the humor is really great. What I didn't like about the humor, and I should add this into the con section, but I just think I should point this out if anybody cares. There is some jokes that they did. They kind of push the humor a little too hard. Sometimes, especially instead of focusing on the story and the characters. I did kind of feel that to a tiny bit towards like the middle and the end part. But the humor is, some of the jokes don't really land personally for me, and a lot of my other friends kind of figure out that there were some jokes in there that didn't really land. But thankfully, that when a joke doesn't land, they kind of move like to the next thing. So you're not just dwelling on this one joke that didn't land, and like the characters are thinking it's absolutely the most hilarious thing to date. But to the audience, it's just like, can we move on to the next thing, please? So I'm glad that they kind of realized that if some of these jokes didn't work, we can quickly move on to the next thing to keep people hooked onto the actual, kind of main focus of the movie there. So I got to give them appreciation for that. Well, this is kind of going into like gorgeous animation, the stunning visuals. I already kind of said what I wanted to say with the aesthetic, the backgrounds, the set pieces, everything about it is fantastic. What's also fantastic is the music as well. God damn, the music slaps so hard in this movie. There is you've probably seen it, but there's a Jack Black and Tenacious D cover of Hit Me Baby One More Time, and it plays at the end credits, and god damn, that slaps so hard. I've listened to that song on repeat because it goes really hard. I just love it. The music is very, very awesome as well. Not just from the Tenacious D stuff, but also just like the regular soundtrack. The soundtrack is gorgeous as always from a Kung Fu Panda film. They're always going to have some gorgeous soundtracks. Personally, for me, I much prefer the soundtrack of the second and the first movie compared to this movie, but the music is not bad whatsoever. What's also not bad is the voice acting. Of course, it's a Jack Black film, and especially a Kung Fu Panda film. The voice acting is going to be pretty good. And if you're wondering, is Awkwafina annoying in this movie? She's definitely playing the exact same character that we've seen over and over again. So she's not like terrible in this movie, but she's definitely not good. She's decent, I would say, actually. But I can at least see that she's trying just a tiny bit, not really kind of being a monotone and just using her wacky voice to make a good character. She's actually decently trying to make, trying to decently act, so to speak. But, you got the other characters like Bryan Cranston, Jack Black, and James Wan. They always do a fantastic stuff. Speaking of James Wan and Bryan Cranston, the Poe dad side plot, I think that's a great touch. I usually don't like side plots in movies because it usually detracts from like the whole the story and everything. I just want to see the main story through and through. But this side plot, actually, I much prefer the side plot over the main movie, honestly. I would love to see a movie where it's just Mr. Ping and Lee just going on like a buddy cop adventure kind of thing, because their dynamic together actually is like really funny in this movie. I think I got the most laughs out of those two, more than Jack Black, and especially not from Awkwafina, because I don't like Awkwafina at all personally, but great voice acting nonetheless, honestly. So that's what I did enjoy about the film. Now let's get into what I didn't like about the film. The main reason why I like Kung Fu Panda as a franchise is not from the hard-hitting message, the great action, or just the fantastic performances from everybody involved with Kung Fu Panda. It has to do with the villains. Kung Fu Panda has one of the best villains I've ever seen, except for Kai, and especially this one, because we're going to talk about it. But I was really kind of not really excited to see the chameleon on screen, but I was definitely intrigued to see what they were going to bring to this villain here. And oh boy, this is probably the weakest villain out of the Kung Fu Panda franchise. Oh my god, she is the most basic and it hurts. The reason why I don't like Kai in the first place is because he was just mid and he was just not a great villain after Lord Shen, because after Kung Fu Panda 2, there's a lot of stuff that they did right with Kung Fu Panda 2. I think coming into the third one with the kind of like a mid villain and kind of like a weak motivation, but the motivation still makes sense. Not this motivation for the chameleon, however. I don't want to get into spoilers at all in this movie, but goddamn, I'm gonna have to spoil just a tiny bit. Her motivation is the most lacking out of the three villains previously. Even Kai, who I don't really like, still has a decent backstory. This, we know nothing about the chameleon. We only know, like, what she wants to do, like, what's her plan and everything, and it's basically just, I want to take over the world, I want to become the most powerful sorceress ever. It's, like, the most basic thing, and I hate it. I just can't stand it. And also, her motivation is because, I was too small, and no Kung Fu Academy would ever accept me because I was too small, and they wouldn't train me. Have you not seen what Poe did? Poe was a flabby, fat panda, Shifu's words, not mine. And he was just like, yeah, I can still be good at Kung Fu. Even Shifu had to train him a different way to get him into fighting, getting into the art of Kung Fu and also fighting against Tai Lung. So, like, it completely ruins what the whole message of the first movie was, and even what still is the message of, like, the other ones where, like, you could still be, like, a good Kung Fu master despite your size. And also Mantis! Are we not forgetting the fact that Mantis is tiny, and he can lift boulders and cut swords in half? Are we just gonna forget that? Because God knows I didn't forget that. But here we are, because the chameleon got really embarrassed that she couldn't get into Academy. Now she has to destroy the world and take over. God damn, her motivation and her backstory is the lamest and the weakest out of the three. It's just so... It kind of boggles my mind how we got from Tai Lung to Lord Shen and to Kai, and then we have this. Like, what happened here between 2016 and 2024? What happened in between there? Like, I don't know. Speaking of villains, this also kind of has to do with the misleading part, but the main advertisement of the film was that the main three villains were coming back. And that's true to a certain extent, but only Tai Lung has like 6 minutes of screen time, and Kai and Lord Shen have no screen time, barely any, and no voice lines at all. No, just completely erased. Let's forget about Lord Shen, who caused Poe to basically find his home life, and who killed his entire, race, basically. And then you got, Kai, who's basically kind of taught Poe, not really taught, but made him realize that he's basically everything that everybody wanted him to be, where he's he's a student, he's a teacher, he's the Dragon Warrior, so forth and so forth. And then you also got Tai Lung, who basically who got him to become the Dragon Warrior and get the Fierce Five to respect him and all that. But they don't have any screen time, and when they do have screen time, they have no voice lines, and they're just there to like move the plot forward, so to speak. Like, even though that this movie, the only reason why I wanted to see this movie was mostly because of the fan service that they announced with like the 3 villains coming back, especially Lord Shen, and they just kind of didn't do anything. Tai Lung had a fantastic action scene where the chameleon brought him back, but like that's it. The other two, like Kai, even I don't like Kai, I would still like him to do something in this movie. Like, it would have been cool if, like, they actually did, like, some fighting against the chameleon before they got their powers sucked out of them. Like, at least Tai Lung had an action scene, but Lord Shen and Kai, they had nothing. They didn't do anything. It's completely useless. And also what's worse is that it actually is part of the side plot. Like, well, not the side plot, but they're part of the main plot where the chameleon wants to take every, kung fu from every master villain, right? That's, like, the whole plot moving forward. That's why Po needs to stop her before she, takes more, kung fu from everything. That's the main plot of the movie, and if they don't do anything, then what the hell is the point in the first place? It doesn't make any sense. Why is it here then? They could have done with a completely different side plot. Well, not side plot, but a completely different plot. Just remove the 3 villains, don't add them at all, and don't give us false hope and a false promise that they are going to be in the movie. Admittedly, they are in the movie, but they're not to the extent of which the director wanted them to be in the movie, and he misled all of us. I'm sorry, he did. I'll show you screenshots in a moment, and it's oh my god, it's Another thing that they also did with Misleading is that the Furious Five, absolutely nowhere to be seen in this movie. They make a split cameo at the credits. And you want to know what their excuse is for why they're not here? They're on separate missions. I don't know what happened. Either that they were trying to save money, or they just couldn't get the voice actors in. And even if they couldn't get, Angelina Jolie, or like Seth Rogen, or Jackie Chan, or David Cross, or any of them, they could have, like, not make the movie at all. If you can't get the main character voice actors back, and they don't show up until the last second, then what the hell is the point of the movie in the first place? If you can't get them, don't make the movie. Because that's what, like, it's also like you're expecting them to be in the movie because you've seen them in all 3 of the movies, especially with the TV show and the spin-offs and everything like that. They're part of the main cast. It's like taking, like, Batman and just, like, removing the Joker out of it, or, like, Robin or Batgirl. Like, they're part of the main cast. They're part of the main characters. Like, why are you removing them? Just don't make it if you don't have them. Like, it makes no sense at all. And what also makes no sense is that this movie has no deep or thought-provoking messages or any drama for that fact. All the 3 other movies had fantastic, deep messages that could connect with adults and children when they're younger. And the drama, especially with Kung Fu Panda 2, Kung Fu Panda 2 had the greatest drama out of any animated movie I've ever seen in my life. And this movie, after coming out of 3, which did have some really great drama revolving Po and his dad, and like at least some messages in the 3rd that actually like make you think a little bit. In this movie, there's no deep provoking messages. The message in this movie, from what I can get from it, from watching it, is basically, you don't have to be who you are in order to be a good person. That's what I got. Because, because Poe is trying to set out to find somebody who has for the Dragon Warrior, right? And then he meets a criminal who's also supposed to, we know this. This is not a spoiler. Everybody knows this, okay? Because it's the most basic plot ever. But basically, the criminal character is the next Dragon Warrior, Poe's successor. And that's basically the movie, where if you are a criminal, you can still be a good person inside, and you can still have a change of heart. Which is a great message nonetheless. But it's so poorly executed and so kind of like pushed to the side a little bit that it doesn't even add anything to the story. It doesn't make me think. It doesn't make me cry. It doesn't make me anything. It doesn't make me feel anything. It just makes me say, oh, I've seen this 20 million times. Like, it doesn't... Oh my god, talking about Kung Fu Panda is giving me some sort of disease. Jesus Christ. But yeah, it's like, everything from leading up to this point is completely removed from from this movie. Like, okay, that's cool. I like that. So, let's get into the misleading stuff, shall we? Which I've already spilled, but I'm gonna talk about it a little bit more. So, if you've gotten this far in the review, you're probably wondering to yourself, what the hell happened with this movie? I'll tell you what happened. Mike Mitchell. Before I continue, I just want to state this, that I am not, putting the entire blame and all my complaints onto the director. I don't want to do that. But he is definitely responsible for some of the misleading aspects that I've stated throughout the review. It also has to do with the writers and also the DreamWorks executives and somewhat of the producers as well. Just want to state that. I also want to state that Mike Mitchell had never worked on the previous 3 Kung Fu Panda films before. He has never worked on the previous 3 films before. But which is kind of disappointing, because I would love to see, the director of Kung Fu Panda 3 and 2 coming back to direct this movie. But I don't want to be like, oh, just because he didn't work on the previous 3 films, that means that he's a terrible director. No, he's directed some movies that are actually pretty decent. He's directed some movies that are considered to be good, some considered to be mid, and some just completely bad. He's directed Trolls, he's directed Shrek Forever After, he's directed the Lego Movie, and one of the Alvin and the Chipmunks movies. And the writers have also worked with Mike Mitchell on the other films that he's worked on as well, so they have a pretty good record together. But the co-director, on the other hand, she has revealed some information through a Q&A on Reddit, that she stated that Mike Mitchell had, they never worked together before, and that he actually had a lot of power over this movie. She didn't have an impressive resume, according to her, and the executives really liked Mike Mitchell because of how much films he's directed and how much, ratings they got. So they put all the power basically onto him. He was basically acting as an executive producer and a director at the exact same time. And for those who don't know, an executive producer and a director are completely separate things, and they have both a lot of power over films and how they get made. And putting that all into one person, basically nobody doesn't have a say in what they want to do with this film. They can't really have a say. And Stephanie Stern stated that she felt a lot of frustration with that, because she felt like a nobody among the cast and the crew as well, because she actually brought up a really good idea, that to the producers, where Shifu would actually meet Tai Lun in this film, and he would actually get redeemed, and they would say goodbye to each other. And that's what I was hoping, and a lot of people were hoping for that in this movie. But somebody, we don't know who yet, but somebody had axed that idea. Why axe that idea? That's a really great idea. And she also stated that, contrary to what Mike Mitchell said, where he said that the Furious 5 were coming back, and the previous 3 villains were definitely coming back, and everybody from the previous 3 films are going to be in this movie. But that contradicts to what she said. She said that Lord Shen and the Furious 5 were actually last-minute additions. And she stated that you can tell because of the models that they use for the characters. The character models for the Furious 5 and Lord Shen are completely different from the character models previously used in the previous 3 films. So that contradicts a lot of what Mike Mitchell said. And basically he said that, I'm assuming this is just a theory, a game theory, that he said that to get more people, in the seats and everything like that. And I'm really sorry that Stephanie Stern had felt that way. and I'm so disappointed that her idea got axed by somebody, and I'm very disappointed in Mike Mitchell for misleading basically a lot of people into thinking that this movie was going to be, a grand finale to the franchise, and it turned out to be mid, or just decent at best. And I'm really disappointed by that. But it's not just, Mike Mitchell, it's also the writers, and who also took the title on direction in a completely different turn from what Stern wanted, and also the executives, classic executive move. They do whatever the hell they want to do, and they don't care. They just care about that good old money, am I right? I'll leave a link in the description to the article of which I'm getting all this information from. If you want to go read it up, I highly recommend, because I want more people to check out this article, because it brings into really interesting insight about what went wrong in the behind the scenes, and more information about Mike Mitchell that seemed really sketchy. So I highly recommend that you read it for yourself. Other than that, I hope that you guys really enjoyed this review. Like, comment, subscribe. I don't care what you do, but I guess what time it is. So, bye guys.